We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The first thing that changed wasn't her behavior. It was the silence. Emily used to fill space without trying. She talked while brushing her hair, while loading the dishwasher, while half asleep on the couch. Even when we argued, there was noise, emotion, heat, something alive. Then one month, the house went quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt managed. She started waking up earlier than me, already dressed, already focused. Her phone never left her hand, but it never buzzed when I was nearby. She laughed more, but not with me. Short laughs, polished laughs, the kind you give people who don't really know you. I told myself it was work. That's what she told me, too. Emily worked in consulting, the kind where everything sounded important, but nothing was ever concrete. Client calls, strategy meetings, networking, words that explained everything and nothing at the same time. Our evenings turned into parallel lives. I cooked. She reheated. I asked about her day. She summarized. I reached for her. She leaned in just long enough to avoid a conversation. I wasn't suspicious at first. I was patient. Maybe too patient. But patience turns into doubt when routines break. She stopped using our shared calendar. Stopped mentioning names. Stopped leaving her phone face up. One night, she came home late, heels in her hand, eyes bright like she'd just stepped off a stage. "You seem happy," I said, trying to sound casual. She smiled, distracted. Productive day. That word stuck with me. Productive. Not good. Not fun. Like her emotions had become bullet points. A week later, I noticed a dry cleaning receipt. Not the amount, the name. Pierce Enterprises. I knew the company. Mid-sized. Regional power. Run by Mark Pierce. Married. Respected. Always photographed with his wife at charity events. The kind of man people trusted instinctively. I didn't confront her. I didn't snoop. Not yet. Instead, I paid attention. I noticed how she dressed differently on certain days. Softer fabrics. Slower movements. How she checked her reflection in dark windows. How she rehearsed smiles that weren't meant for me. And then came the message that finally shifted something in me from confusion to clarity. She texted while I was still at work, short and casual, like it meant nothing at all. She said she had drinks planned with someone from work. Somewhere nice. Somewhere public. She added a heart emoji at the end, like that balanced everything out. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry. Not hurt. Focused. Because for the first time, the story she was telling didn't match the rhythm of her life anymore. That night, instead of going home, I did something I'd never done before. I made a call, and the woman who answered on the other end of the line didn't sound surprised at all. She sounded relieved. Lauren didn't rush into explanations. That was the first thing that told me she wasn't dramatic, wasn't reckless, and definitely wasn't mistaken. We met 2 days after that call, not somewhere emotional or symbolic, just a quiet cafe off a side street, the kind of place people used when they didn't want to be seen. She arrived early. I arrived later than planned. Neither of us apologized. "He's careful," she said once we sat down. "That's what makes him dangerous." I listened. Really listened. Not like a man looking for proof, but like someone finally allowing the truth to settle in. Lauren explained how Mark had changed over the last year. How business trips multiplied. How phone calls happened in hallways. How he suddenly cared about his appearance in ways that didn't match his age or routine. She didn't accuse at first either. She waited, watched, trusted patterns instead of emotions. Then she found the gaps. Calendar blocks with no details. Expenses routed through work accounts. A second email she wasn't supposed to know about. And eventually, messages that were never explicit, but never innocent. Emily's name came up more than once. "She's not the first," Lauren said quietly, "but she's the most consistent." That word hit harder than I expected. Consistent meant effort. Consistent meant intention. I went home that night and looked at my wife differently. Not with suspicion, with distance. I noticed how easily she slipped into charm when I asked simple questions. How she deflected with humor. How she kissed me longer when she sensed hesitation. Like affection was a distraction she could deploy. She wasn't cruel. That almost made it worse. Our life together still looked perfect from the outside. Weekend groceries. Shared jokes with neighbors. Photos that suggested stability. But inside, something had shifted. I stopped chasing reassurance. Stopped asking where she'd been. I started documenting instead. Times, dates, small inconsistencies. Emily began to relax. That's the mistake people make when they think they're winning. They get comfortable. Lauren and I stayed in touch. Always careful, always precise. No emotional dumping. No dramatic vows. Just information. Calm, clean, strategic. One evening, Lauren forwarded me a reservation confirmation. A rooftop lounge. Downtown. Upscale. Public enough to look harmless. Private enough to blur boundaries. Same night Emily told me she'd be out late. I didn't confront her. I didn't argue. I didn't even hesitate. I told her to have fun. The night of the reservation, Emily got dressed with unusual care. She moved slowly, deliberately, like she wanted the moment to last before it even happened. She chose a dress I'd seen only once before, months ago, when she said it was too much for most places. She kissed me before leaving. Soft, controlled. I might be late, she said. I figured, I replied. She smiled and walked out, heels clicking down the hallway like punctuation at the end of a sentence. I didn't leave right away. I showered, changed, put on a jacket I hadn't worn since our anniversary. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel like myself again. When I arrived downtown, I didn't go straight upstairs. I met Lauren first. She was already there, seated at a corner table on the rooftop, skyline glowing behind her. She looked composed, almost serene, but her fingers tightened around her glass when she saw me. He thinks he's meeting her alone, she said. So does she, I replied. We sat there quietly, two people connected by the same betrayal, watching the city breathe beneath us. There was no revenge yet, no confrontation, just presence. Lauren leaned in slightly. Whatever happens tonight, we don't raise our voices. I nodded. We don't have to. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Emily stepped out first. She laughed at something Mark said, an easy, familiar laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Mark followed close behind her, confident, relaxed, already reaching for the small of her back before stopping himself in public. They didn't see us at first. Emily scanned the room, searching, and then her eyes met mine. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost startling. Her smile froze mid-curve. Her body stiffened, like she'd walked into the wrong version of reality. Mark turned slowly. Lauren stood. No yelling. No chaos. Just four people, finally standing in the same truth. And for the first time since all this began, I felt something stronger than anger. Control. No one spoke at first. That silence did more damage than any accusation ever could. Emily's eyes moved from my face to Lauren's, then to Mark, as if her mind was desperately trying to rearrange the room into something that made sense again. It didn't. Mark recovered first. Men like him always do. He straightened his jacket, forced a polite smile, and extended a hand toward me like we were strangers meeting for the first time. Daniel, right? He said. This isn't what it looks like. Lauren laughed softly, not out of humor, but disbelief. You've used that line before, she said, just not on an audience. Emily finally found her voice. You followed me. No, I replied calmly. You invited me, just not with words. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked small in that moment, not helpless, cornered. There's a difference. We didn't sit together. Lauren stayed standing, eyes steady, spine straight. I remained seated, relaxed on purpose. Power doesn't always stand tall. Sometimes it waits. This was supposed to be private, Emily said, her voice shaking now. It was, Lauren answered. That's the problem. Mark tried again. We're professionals. This is a misunderstanding that's getting blown out of proportion. I leaned back slightly and met his eyes. Then you won't mind explaining why your professional meetings happen after midnight, why your work expenses cover hotels instead of conference rooms, and why my wife stopped sharing her calendar the same month your second email address became active. His smile cracked. Emily turned to him sharply. Second email? That was new to her. Lauren didn't miss the opening. You didn't tell her? She asked Mark. That's interesting. You told me it was only about transparency. Mark's jaw tightened. For the first time, the room felt unstable for him. People nearby started to notice the tension. No one was loud, but something was happening, and curiosity spreads faster than sound. Emily's eyes filled, but no tears fell. Daniel, I can explain. I shook my head gently. Not tonight. That stopped her. I'm not here to hear explanations. I continued. I'm here to end lies. Mark scoffed. You think this ends here? Lauren stepped closer to him, her voice calm and devastating. No. You think it does? She turned to me. You ready? I nodded. We didn't argue. We didn't insult. We walked away together, Lauren and I, leaving them standing there with half-finished drinks and unfinished stories. Outside, the air felt different, cleaner, like I'd been holding my breath for months without realizing it. Lauren broke the silence. They'll panic tonight. They already are, I said. Over the next few days, panic turned into damage control. Emily swung between remorse and defensiveness. Apologies followed by excuses. Tears followed by justifications. She wanted forgiveness without consequence, repair without accountability. Mark went quiet. That silence wasn't peace. It was strategy. But Lauren was already 3 steps ahead. She filed first. Clean. Precise. No public drama. No emotional leaks. Just documentation, timelines, and financial clarity. She didn't ask for revenge. She asked for truth. And truth has weight. Emily tried to negotiate. Therapy. Space. Promises. She said the word mistake like it could cover months of decisions. I moved out within a week. Not angrily. Intentionally. That choice did something to her that yelling never could. She lost control of the narrative. And then came the final move. Lauren uncovered something Mark had been hiding. Not from her, but from his company. Conflicts of interest. Misused accounts. Business blurred with personal favors. Nothing illegal enough for headlines, but enough to end trust. She didn't leak it. She sent it through proper channels. Professionally. Quietly. Mark was asked to step down within days. Emily found out the same morning Mark did. She showed up at my door and announced. Eyes wild. Phone shaking in her hand. He says his life is ruined, she said. This wasn't supposed to happen. I met her gaze, steady and unmoved. You're right. It wasn't supposed to happen. She waited for anger, for rage, for something familiar. Instead, I said, this is what happens when people confuse secrecy with safety. She broke down then, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to realize something she hadn't before. The damage wasn't loud. It was permanent. And for the first time, I wasn't angry about it. I was free. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. For the first time in years, my mornings belonged to me again. No tiptoeing around tension. No reading between lines that weren't honest to begin with. I woke up when my body told me to, not when anxiety nudged me out of sleep. Coffee tasted stronger. Air felt lighter. Even silence sounded different. Less like abandonment, more like clarity. Emily moved out completely 2 weeks after that night. She didn't fight it. Not because she didn't care, but because somewhere deep down, she knew there was nothing left to defend. She left behind small things on purpose, I think. A mug, a scarf, a book she knew I'd notice. Not as manipulation, just hesitation. The human instinct to leave pieces of yourself where you once mattered. I packed them carefully and put them in a box. Closure doesn't mean destruction. It means boundaries. We spoke one final time, sitting across from each other in the living room that had once felt like a shared future. She looked smaller now, not defeated, but exposed. Without the momentum of secrecy, she had to sit with herself. I never meant to hurt you, she said quietly. I believed her. That didn't change anything. Hurt isn't always intentional, I replied. Sometimes it's just prioritized. She swallowed. Do you hate me? I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said, but I don't trust you. And love can't survive without that. She nodded, eyes glassy, and stood. That was it. No shouting. No begging. Just an ending that felt final in a way words never could. Mark's fall was quieter than I expected. No public disgrace. No dramatic collapse. Just a steady unraveling. Invitations stopped coming. Calls went unanswered. His name faded from conversations that once revolved around him. Reputation doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes. Lauren handled it with grace I didn't know I was capable of admiring so deeply. We didn't rush into anything. We didn't confuse shared trauma with connection. But we checked in on each other. Occasionally. Carefully. Like two people who understood the cost of misplaced trust. One evening, weeks later, we met again. Same cafe as before. Different energy. I'm moving, she said. New city. Fresh start. That sounds right. I smiled. She studied me for a moment. You look steady. I feel honest, I replied. She nodded. That's better. We hugged before parting. No promises. No expectations. Just mutual respect and gratitude for surviving something without becoming bitter. That night, I walked through my apartment and noticed something I hadn't before. How much of my life had been arranged to accommodate someone else's comfort. I rearranged furniture, cleared closets, changed the small things. Reclaiming space is an act of self-respect. Months passed. I started running again. Not for fitness, just to feel momentum. I reconnected with friends I'd slowly faded from without realizing it. I laughed more freely, slept deeper. I didn't date right away. Healing doesn't need witnesses. One afternoon, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. It was Mark. Short, formal, uncomfortable. He wrote that he'd made mistakes, that things had spiraled, that he wanted to move forward. I didn't respond. Some conversations don't deserve echoes. Emily tried once more, an email this time. Long, reflective, careful. She acknowledged her choices without deflecting. She wished me peace. I replied with one sentence. I hope you find honesty, especially with yourself. That was the last time we spoke. The real revenge wasn't watching them lose things. It was realizing I didn't need to see it to move on. 1 year later, I found myself back on that same rooftop. Not for confrontation, not for closure. Just for dinner with friends, laughter spilling into the night air. The city looked the same, but I wasn't. At some point, I caught my reflection in the glass. Relaxed posture, easy smile, eyes no longer searching for threats. I understood something then. The strongest response to betrayal isn't destruction. It's growth that doesn't ask permission. I didn't win because they lost. I won because I stopped living in reaction to someone else's choices. And that victory, quiet, unannounced, undeniable, was mine alone.